Our opening words this morning are taken from our hymnal, and the author is Leslie Takahashi. Here in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here in this place of rest, let us unrest our hearts and turn them towards justice. Here in this space made sacred by the memories of connection, let each of us feel ourselves part of that new that grows from the old into the spiraling of each year.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm Bill McShay, your worship associate for today's service. We come together each Sunday morning as a community of seekers of what is most important in our lives, seekers of understanding in the face of uncertainty and loss, seekers of forgiveness for our shortcomings, seekers of gratitude for the unexpected gifts we receive from all around us. We gather in awe of the beauty of nature and the mysteries of the universe. But most importantly, we come together as seekers of the community of love and empowerment, celebrating our search for truth and meaning in our daily lives. Now, as Lana Hurt comes forward, let us all say together here and from our homes the words for our chalice light. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Now I invite you to come together as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one to another. Our opening song is number 1 in the hymnal. If everyone may stand, may nothing evil cross this door.
Time for all ages this morning is Weaving Our Path by Martha Dallas. Imagine with me that you're going along a trail in the woods and you come across a steep gorge with a river rushing at the bottom. There's only one way to get across. You see a bridge and it's made of long, overgrown grass. Let's see if that stays there. What questions would be running through your mind before you set foot on that grass bridge? What I would want to know more than anything else is if the people who made the bridge also walked across it and whether they still use it. Of course, we don't have bridges made of grass in Virginia, but many were built for hundreds of years in South America by the Inca people. Go sit back down. You're right there. Where did I go? There we are. And I think a few still exist. Here's how they did it. First, they made fresh bridges once a year. On the appointed day, everyone in the village would gather to begin work. Each person had a special role to play in building the bridge. There were people who gathered the grass. Other people took that grass and twisted it into long ropes and wove them into thick braids. And those braids were twisted by other people into long cables as thick as my arm. Certain people strung the cables across the gorge and pulled them nice and tight. And finally, there were riggers who would lash the cables together in such a way as to create a footbed to walk on and rails on each side to hold. Each person did their part as best they could, and they relied on everyone else to do their part as well, because every one of them needed that bridge to safely carry them across the river whenever they needed to go that way. I tell you about grass bridges this morning for two reasons. First, it reminds us of how important our small part is when it's part of something big and strong and even miraculous as a bridge made of grass. Second, we in this congregation may not be building a bridge across a raging river, but we are building a way toward our future, our shared vision. I want to walk that way, and I hope many of you will walk that way too. And if I'm going to walk that way, I want to walk a way that feels sure and strong and safe, a way that I know has been built with everyone doing their part as best they can. So may we all build that way together, like the Inca grass bridge builders. And will you please join me now in singing the children off to the classroom? Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Mine are in their 30s, but it seems like it was just yesterday. Let us enter into a time of meditation followed by a moment of silence. Sometimes this world may seem more than we can bear. Sometimes our fears push back our hopes. Sometimes sickness overwhelms us. Sometimes we are uncertain and in need of comfort. Whatever our needs, whatever our fears, whatever our joys, this space is sacred. This space is safe, and this space is nurturing. Let us be mindful. Let us be peaceful. Let us be still. Let us be open to the suffering and doubts of others. Let us be open to our own self-doubts. Let us be open to one another. Let us be open to life. Amen, and let it be.
Our words of reflection today are entitled Have Patience with Everything by Rainer Marie Rilke. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, as if they are rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for answers which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live with them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way to the answer.
When we think on the pantheon of Unitarian Universalist heroines and heroes, certain names always seem to come to the forefront. We often think of our New England saints, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and the great 19th century Unitarian and Universalist preachers, Hosea Ballou, William Ellery Channing, and Theodore Parker. In more recent times, we might think upon those 15 Unitarians who were among the first signers of the Humanist Manifesto. In fact, almost half of the signers were our chosen faith. And we remember the Reverend James Reeb, who was murdered in Selma, Alabama, at whose memorial service the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke so eloquently. And today, some would even suggest that the poet Mary Oliver is among our most revered. But this morning, I want to talk about someone whose name is not so familiar, perhaps, and yet who had a profound influence on our movement. This morning, I want to share the story of James Luther Adams. In his lifetime, Adams was a noted minister, theologian, and social ethicist. He was born in Ritzville, Wisconsin in 1901, the son of an itinerant Baptist minister and farmer. As a youth, he learned shorthand and rose quickly to become the secretary to the superintendent of the Northern Pacific Railway. Although he had positioned himself to become a success in the railroad industry, his heart lay elsewhere. Adams once wrote that, quote, he just wanted to learn something about Shakespeare. And so in 1920, he entered the University of Minnesota. After a time in which he radically rejected all religion, Adams came to recognize that his passion was theology and ministry was his calling. So he entered Harvard Divinity School in 1924 with the intention of becoming a Unitarian minister. In his autobiography, Adams recounts his transition from the fundamentalism of his youth to the, quote, scientific humanism that he adopted at Harvard, and then his journey towards liberal Christianity. He recalled the words of an influential teacher, Dr. Frank Rehrig, who once told him that his problem was that he had never heard of a self-critical religion. After Harvard, Adams entered parish ministry and over the years served 2 separate congregations. During his years as a minister, Adams went back to Harvard to pursue another great love, to study comparative literature. These studies took him to Germany, where he then studied comparative religion. And he was in Germany during the Nazi buildup, and he was shaken by the willingness of many German churches and theologians to collaborate with the Nazis. Out of this experience, Adams' lifelong study of religion and community came to be. Upon his return to the United States, he accepted a position as a professor of social ethics at Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is part of the Theological Consortium of the University of Chicago, and then back to Harvard, where he taught for many years. During his life, his biographer, Kim Beach, noted that Adams constantly drew on his vast knowledge of history, sociology, psychology, the arts, and theology. and he was most deeply influenced by the preeminent theologians of this century, Alfred Lord Whitehead and Paul Tillich. Beach goes on to say that the entire quest of Adams' professional career may be seen as a transformative response to his childhood religion in two basic ways. First, his quest as a theologian for a, quote, examined faith, a faith subject to self-criticism and growth. And second, his quest as an ethicist for a faith that seeks to embody its ethical commitment to history and each community. But so much for the backstory. Here then is Adams' contribution to our current Unitarian Universalism. I call that church free, he wrote. I call that church free which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence, that sustaining and transforming power not made with human hands. It binds together families and generations, protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute authority. I call that church free, he wrote, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom. The title of this morning's sermon comes from one of Adams' essays on being human religiously. Adams was an advocate of the notion that an unexamined life was hardly worth living. Where have we heard that before? Or, as he wrote, life is either a commitment or else it is either a meaningless pastime. In today's world, Adams would be considered a Unitarian Christian, and matters of faith were deeply important to him. He observed that down among the brain cells, as well as out in the community around us, faith is at work, or rather, a multitude of faiths is at work. The question concerning faith, he writes, is not, shall I be a person of faith? The proper question is, which faith is mine? For whether a person craves prestige, wealth, security, or amusement, whether a person lives for a century, for science, for God, for plunder, that person is demonstrating a faith, a showing that she or he puts confidence in something. For many people, of course, the concept of faith is hard to examine without also examining one's understanding of that concept which many call God. And again, Adams notes, no one and no culture can for long maintain a dynamic and creative attitude towards life without confidence that human life has some important meaning, either actual or potential, and that this meaning may in some tolerable fashion be maintained and achieved. His concern with the meaning of life is no mere optional luxury. It is a universal concern, he notes. It is the essential concern of religion. In Adams' mind, religion deals with those issues that are of greatest concern to us in our living. And he would argue that according to this definition, there is no such thing as the completely irreligious person. Again, he wrote, both the non-religious and the religious person are concerned with these same issues, and they are both in their own way believers. They are people of faith, whether they know it or not, whether they use the word God or not. And this is what is so interesting in his writing. Adams suggests that the atheist rejects what appears to be sacred and sovereign to the theist, But in doing so, he recognizes something else that is sovereign and sacred for that person. This recognition that something is sovereign in practice, if not in theory, appears in both the serious atheist and the serious theist. The one rejects the word God, the other accepts it. But both believe that something is sacred, something is holy, something is reliable. For Adams, both the non-religious and the religious person are concerned with the ultimate questions of existence. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose in life? And they are both equally somehow believers. They are people of faith. For me, this is the key point in Adams' writing. Atheist and theist, two sides of the same coin. This theist makes his or her religion around the understanding of God in ways that God does or does not interact in the world. Nonetheless, for the theist, God is the ultimate truth, the ground of being, the creator. And for the atheist, science, technology, and humanity's ability to rise to its best self are what are to be worshiped. Adams counsels us, though, that one absolute that both atheists and theists must hold in common is the need for community. And it is out of this mutual need for community that social justice and social action arise. Faith, Adams says, is the sister of justice. These dichotomies remind me of a story I once heard. Upon his death, a man was given a tour of both heaven and hell so he could select his final destination. So first he went to hell. He saw a lot of people sitting at a great long banquet table loaded with all kinds of delicious food. However, he noticed that these people were all unhappy and looked frustrated. They each had a fork strapped to their left arm and a knife on their right arm, and each had a 4-foot handle that made it impossible for them to feed themselves. With all that food in front of them, they were not able to taste any of it. After this scene in hell, he was taken on his tour of heaven. And again, he noticed people at a great long banquet table loaded with all kinds of delicious food. But there was a difference because here he noticed that the people were cheerful and enjoying themselves. They also had forks and knives with 4-foot handles, but they were busy eating because they were busy feeding one another across the table. Each person in heaven was helping their neighbor and being fed by the neighbor in return. The people in hell were unable to eat because they were trying to feed only themselves. And so it is that for James Luther Adams, the ultimate community can be seen each Sunday morning in spaces like this where we come together in community. We are an intentional community drawn together out of our shared hopes and shared dreams for what this world could be. We are atheists and agnostics, Christians and Jews, Buddhists and Wiccans, and much, much more. But regardless of what faith we profess, we can agree that our purpose as a congregation is to explore what is rightly of concern to people of a free and open faith. Adam's most succinct definition of God was just this: God is the power of community. Adams describes congregations like ours as communities of the faithful and communities of sinners. But it is from within our communities that we are called to seek fulfillment and that transforming reality that draws us into becoming a beloved community. I call that church free, Adam said. I call that church free, which brings each of us into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes and feeds our integrity and our spiritual freedom. It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, an adventure of the Spirit. Amen, and blessed be.
Today we have with us Jeff Stern from the Sinclair Health Center, a free and low-cost public health clinic located in Winchester, for whom we share the plate offering which will be taken. Jeff?
First, thank you for having me. My name is Jeff. I'm with Sinclair Health Clinic. How many are familiar with Sinclair Health Clinic? Good. I won't go through the history, except to say this. I've been very moved today by the service and the words that have been spoken, and it reminded me a great deal of how Sinclair came to be. And it started more than 35 years ago by seekers looking for the answers to a serious problem in the community. And that is, how can we help those who don't have access to good quality healthcare, mental health care, and the resources they need to live a healthier and happier life? How can we help? So individuals like in this room with good hearts came together and found a solution. And it started first with volunteers, single reeds, right, with which to build a bridge, over which individuals in our community who were seeking health, seeking happiness, actually a human right, could find a way to cross over if they were willing. And that's how it started. And so it has been for 35 years that Sinclair Health Clinic has offered these services. And we have, reed by reed, person by person, donor by donor, volunteer physician by volunteer physician, built an ever widening bridge because the numbers of individuals who need to cross it are not stopping. We know from COVID-19 that everyone's health impacts our entire community, and that our neighbor's health matters as much as our own. And I'm grateful to see the masks here today. I hope everybody is getting vaccinated and continuing, because the numbers of infection continue to rise, although hospitalizations and deaths are down. Remember, vaccination and wearing a mask is not a political statement. It is a statement of love that we give to each other. And so, as my host said to me before I started, brevity is next to godliness. I'll wrap up by saying, if it is in your heart to make a gift to Sinclair Health Clinic, I commit to you this. I commit to you that we will take that good gift and use it to strengthen the bridge over which neighbors in our community use to be healthier. I commit to you that we will not be perfect and we won't get it right all the time, but we will work hard to love everyone who comes. Thank you for having me here and for considering Sinclair Health Clinic. Thank you.
After the service in our narthex, Jeff will be available to answer questions about the work. Except for payments marked as pledges, half of today's offering will go to support the Sinclair Health Center and their important work, which is well aligned with UU values. So please be generous during the offertory. I think it's time. Everyone would stand for our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Extinguishes the flame. Let us say together here and from our homes the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. We carry in our heart until we meet again. The purpose of this church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. If you happen to be watching us online, we hope you will consider making an offering after today's service through our webpage, uushenandoah.org. This will allow us to exercise the generosity of spirit for this self-supporting church and its many ministries which continue during this time when not all of us are able to be together physically. Thank you for joining us today.
We close with the words of the great Universalist minister, John Murray. Go out into the highways and byways, give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts of women and men. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach kindness, community, and the everlasting love of God. Have a good week.